All right, I'm live. Cool. All right. Well, it's easier just to do a live than it is to record because I'm very lazy. And so anyway, I figured I would do a quick live stream because we delivered Jerry Calverley's Phantom 4 Pro, or excuse me, Phantom 4 to Will over at the Drone Repair Center here in Houston, and got his drone set up to be repaired because we know that the NLD software, the No Limit Drone software, discovered that the gimbal controller board is what's wrong with it. So while I was there, I decided I would bring along Mike Roche's M1 drone, the M1 drone, or excuse me, it's upside down, the M1 drone. I would bring his M1 drone along to see if Will could figure out what was going wrong with the gimbal. Because I don't know if you guys were aware, but on this particular drone, when we first got it, if you were to take the gimbal and tilt it back, it wouldn't do this. It would bang up against something and get stuck. And if you powered the drone up, it would do its test, get to that, and make a loud whacking noise, and it was just all bad. So anyway, so while we were over there, since Will knew that I keep promoting his site, which I will add his information to the description because the guy is brilliant. And if you need a drone fixed and you got no place else to turn, Will is the guy to make it happen. He's the one I turn to when even I can't figure it out. So this gimbal, I couldn't figure it out. I had disassembled this thing. I had gone and compared it to the other two drones to see what was wrong or what was different. And visually, there was nothing. The gimbal was exactly the same as the others. It had the same spacing. It was in the right place. There was nothing that was out of whack. It just, when you tilted it backwards, it wouldn't go backwards, you know. So when we went over there, what he did, Will, he's gonna do that bird thing. I know it, Ken. That's what you're doing. Anyway, we took the camera out and dismounted it from the frame, and he noticed that the little H frame that holds the gimbal in place was literally like a micrometer bent. I couldn't see it. He put it up against another one that was perfectly fine. I couldn't tell the difference between the two, but he could. And so he replaced that part, put it back together, and the gimbal moves properly now. So we figured everything was fine. Mike was under the impression the camera was perfect. And so I got home. I got Mike on the Facebook Messenger, and we started video chatting. And I plugged everything up and turned it on. And I got a Christmas tree list of errors from the drone. You know, just everything didn't work. The front vision sensors didn't work. The camera was wrong. There were errors coming from all these different boards. And I was like, what in the hell? So we disassembled the drone again. I noticed that the data cables that go from the controller board down to the main board had come loose. So I reseated those, reseated both of the front vision sensor connectors. And I went ahead and dropped the gimbal again and made sure that all of the plugs on top of the sensor board were in place. I'll hold this up a little bit higher since people can't see that. But so these two data cables back here in the back weren't fully seated. The front vision sensors were needed to be kind of pressed down a little bit. Once I powered the drone back up, then the alarms from the vision sensors and other things went away. And all I was left with was errors from the gimbal, which all of a sudden now, instead of the gimbal doing the normal dance, the gimbal was locking in this odd position and giving me errors, which again didn't make any sense. So I reseated the connection on top of the controller board again, just to make sure that I hadn't put it on there wrong, which it's really, really, you know, a very, very fine connection. it's hard to tell sometimes if it's seated properly. Once I reseated that, applied power to it, now the gimbal does its dance the right way, and yeah, Dan's always trying to get me into open source birds, but unfortunately nobody will send me one to play with. Anyway, so the gimbal, everything works fine now. The Christmas tree effect of errors has gone away, and I'm down to one thing, and one thing only, which is I am not getting a video signal from the actual camera itself. And we had this problem with the Rollins bird where we weren't getting a signal from the camera. Because this drone took an impact strong enough to bend the H frame on top of the gimbal. My guess is one of two things has happened. Either one, the camera inside, I have an extra camera here. The camera inside has a little data cable connection. That data cable connection could have come loose or gotten jarred from the impact. Or the cable itself could have gotten pinched someplace, which I'm kind of leaning against. Because if the cable was bad, I would see other reactions from the gimbal. There's a lot of other data signals that go through that cable for the gimbal motors and such. If the cable was bad, I would have expected to see erratic behavior from the motors, which I'm not. So my guess is that either I have a loose connection inside the camera, or the camera is defective and needs to be replaced. So my hope is that with everything else that we found with this drone is that it's just a loose connection. So, and because tomorrow I'm going to be spending a majority of the day working on Ken's bird, I wanted to try to fool around with this one while I was out at Will's shop. So, hats off to Will, and I'll put the link or information in the description for his shop in Houston. The guy is a brilliant drone repair guy, and he doesn't just work on DJI. He works on Uniques. He works on anything. If it's a drone, he'll work on it. So, and I hats off to him. The guy is absolutely brilliant. I love the work that he does, and the ability for him to be able to see an issue just instantaneously. And we'll put the GPS connection back on, and we'll slap the cup back on. And this particular drone, I'm not going to seal it back up until I get a chance to change out that camera. So, but I wanted to give an update on that because Mike Roche sat with me for several hours today as we went through and started playing around with this. And we really, really thought we had this one working. So, unfortunately, not yet. Keep slugging away at it. If I have to replace the camera, I think just the camera itself I can get for about $60. So, I will put that one on the side burner and get to work on Ken's drone tomorrow. Yeah, I'm live. I do this occasionally, just, because it's easier than making a recording and then going back and editing and then posting and getting all the family screaming and yelling at me because I'm using the bandwidth, and it's just crazy. So, nonetheless, one thing I do want to post out there, if anybody has a Mavic that you crashed, lost, whatever, and you have another one of these just sitting around in a closet because you don't have the drone anymore, etc., I need one more. If anybody has one, Mike, when he sent me this drone, sent me the battery and all of the blades and everything for it, but it didn't come with a remote. So, and that's the only thing I think this one needs to make it 100% once I get the camera going is a remote. So, if anybody knows a friend, family member, close acquaintance, some guy in a YouTube forum, anything that might have a remote tucked away someplace, let them know I'm looking for one. So, other than that, like I said, we'll work on Ken's drone tomorrow, which is a shell replacement. So once I get the shell replaced, then expect a video for the test flight. I may shoot some footage of the actual work on the frame. Thank you. I appreciate it, Lloyd. I may shoot some footage on working on the frame, but honestly, that's once I get started on it, I can't really stop. It's not one of those things you can just kind of walk away from because you make a hell of a mess when you start working on it. But I want to get Ken's frame replaced so that we can at least do a test flight with the body and make sure that the internals are all working, because I mean it did fall 400 feet down to the ground and slam into the pavement, and we want to make sure that the internals are still good and functioning, because if you've seen the video, that thing was cartwheeling like crazy as it went to the ground. And with the motor damaged the way that it was, if it damaged or shorted any of the boards in there, we won't know until we start putting power to it. Okay, it's not a pink Wonder Woman shield. This right here, okay, is a spinny thing. You spin it, right? It's like the Wheel of Fortune clicker. And on it, it has a bunch of different genres of movies. So sci-fi, romance, whatever. I have 5 boys in this house who cannot decide on a movie for movie night. So when they finally drive me up the wall where they can't choose a film, I take that thing out and I spin it. Whatever it lands on is the genre movie we're watching, and they don't have any choice after that. So it's not a pink Wonder Woman shield. Anyway, it's a tension breaker is what it is. But that's where I'm at. I look forward to getting this one back in the air. Simply because I love fixing drones. It's a passion. I love seeing them fly again. And this one, from what I understand, will fly. I mean, if I take it out tomorrow, I can probably fly it with no issues. Which is probably a good idea. I should probably test that and make sure. But fly this with no issues. I just wouldn't have any video signal from that camera. But more to follow. And hopefully a future test flight from Ken's drone, because I know he's really anxious to get it back. And I'm anxious to get rid of some of the clutter of drones that I've got here. Jerry Calverley's drone, 3 days for them to work on his, and I'll go over and pick it up once that's ready. That's going to be the controller board on top of the gimbal that's preventing it from doing the flash update, which actually, of note, this drone needed a firmware update. So I plugged it up the DJI Assistant and I let it run the firmware. And because the gimbal was having problems, where did it get stopped? 55, 56% stopped right there, wouldn't go any farther. So that thing that we learned with the NLD software, being able to determine where in the firmware process it's actually failing, that software is definitely worth its weight in gold. So if you're a person that likes to tinker with drones, or if you really want to know more about what it's doing with your drone when you're updating, or if you have an update that isn't working and you need to figure out why, No Limit Drones, their software, he's going to make the firmware update portion of that software free. So you won't have to buy the software to be able to use that. If you like the software, which it has a lot of other features, then by all means, purchase the rest of the package. Just be warned, it is serialized to the drone. So one copy of the software will serialize itself to whatever drone you use it on. It's not open to just any old drone that you plug into it. Aside from anything else, I can't think if I got any more updates. That's really about it. So fun with this, almost repaired, and more to come on Ken's drone here in the near future. So thanks everybody for enjoying listening to me ramble on about drones for a few. Tell them to decide, or you will break up. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, the pink Wonder Woman shield is not going to go away. It's either that or the bird. One of the two, I'm definitely going to not hear the end of. So, all right. Thank you very much for chiming in. And I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. And see you next time. Bye. And if we click somewhere in here, it ends the stream like that. And then I click here and like that.